All right, welcome. It's episode 100 of the Content Toolbox. We made it. Oh my goodness. So this has been a big accomplishment. It feels like it. So we're throwing a big celebration. And this episode right here, I am going to share the things that we learned over the last year. What we learned, what went well, what did not go well, and what we are planning to change in the future. So, for the last time, cue the theme song, buckle up, and let's head on it.
I ran marketing departments in corporate America for 10 years and then ran a digital agency for over another 10 years. So I know the roadmap to online success, and that formula always includes producing content to share your message, from your marketing message to sales and delivery. Hi, I'm Jennifer Neal, and you're listening to the Content Toolbox. I believe the secret to finding and creating raving fans online is through you. In building relationships through stories that share who you really are, create genuine, crazy, raving fans that keep begging you to take their money. And on this podcast, we'll be talking strategies, tactics, tips, and more with myself and other industry experts. So buckle up and start your engines, because it's go time.
All right, here we are, episode 100. Oh my goodness, we made it. It's funny to be making such a big show out of this because I know that so many people have, like 400 episodes and 500 episodes, and I personally think that they should all be celebrated. But, it's a big accomplishment to continue putting all this stuff together. And the point of publish for a year, publish consistently for a year, publish every day for a year, whatever. It's a good point in that it really does help you to refine your message and how it is that you're helping people and really be able to dial in your own voice. But what they don't tell you is that it's a lot of work. And if you're just publishing content to publish content, it may not be good and it's not going to get you any further. So these are all things that we have learned along the way and lessons that I want to share with you guys right here. So as part of what we are doing for episode 100 is we are making a big splash because we realized that just because some of the content is a year old or close to it doesn't mean that it's bad. So we're actually taking and repurposing that content, making a big spectacle. So I am actually going to be doing a workshop at the end of April where I'm sharing all of the results of our repurposing efforts. We're literally making an effort to create a big splash and make all this noise, grow our list, grow our social media reach, and increase traffic to our website, all without spending a ton of money on ads and just activating the content that we have already produced from this podcast. So it's a complete exercise in strategic content activation. We're repurposing this stuff and reusing it just in the way that we need. And so it's a total experiment, could completely fail, could be amazing. So far, what we've seen is over a 300% increase in traffic to our website. And I will be sharing exactly how much we grew our email list and exactly how much we grew our social following at this workshop, walk you through the strategy of how we put it together, and help you to set up the exact same strategy for your own business. Wouldn't it be awesome to make a bunch of noise and not have to create new content? That's what we're after. All right. So I am sitting here doing the fireside version, which for me is really, I guess, camera side. So sharing a little bit of the other backdrop that we have here. I am sitting in my office, and it is entirely possible that we'll have one or more of the animals show up in frame, but that's what we do, and that's just how we're gonna roll. So here we go. We have been running the Content Toolbox for just over a year. We did put a slight pause on a couple of the episodes when we were running our summit, and otherwise we have been producing 2 episodes a week. And so here we are at episode 100. Pretty amazing, right? So for episode 100, what we are doing is we're actually featuring all of our guests. I have my notes because otherwise I will forget. But One of the things that we did not do well with the podcast was really making a big splash when the new episodes dropped, letting our list know, featuring all of the guests when a guest episode dropped. And so we're trying to kind of make it up to everybody by making a big splash now. So I'm going to just start off on my list with some of the things that we learned over the course of this last year. So really, one of the biggest reasons that we started the Content Toolbox was because we are all about content repurposing. And in order to repurpose content in the way that we teach is by starting with a core foundation, like a core recording. So when I started the podcast, I wasn't necessarily in it to grow and build a podcast listenership. I was in it more to really record and create that core content that then became the heart of our content activation or our content repurposing system. And so that was amazing and worked pretty well for most of that purpose. However, what it meant was we weren't really paying a lot of attention to growing the podcast as an actual podcast. One of the things that we also did is we film everything in video. And so every one of the episodes goes onto YouTube as another episode. Now, with all of our YouTube videos, we create a hooky, catchy thumbnail. We SEO optimize it with keywords and tags that are related. We do a full write-up. And in the write-up, we're supposed to link back to the blog. And so we've done all of that with our YouTube channel. Did not really focus on creating engagement and creating, like, asking engaging questions and doing some of the other things that really help to build a YouTube channel. So here's where we are at the end of a year of producing the Content Toolbox is we're literally sitting somewhere around 2,500 downloads in total, not per episode, in total for all of the episodes. And our YouTube channel is sitting somewhere around 40 subscribers or something like that. We really haven't been pushing to promote those platforms for the sake of promoting the platforms. And in looking back, I feel like that's probably a mistake. So that is one thing. So just because we were creating this to set up as content repurposing, we didn't do a fantastic job of treating a podcast like an actual podcast. So what we ended up doing was kind of getting into a method of how do I create this content and really just focusing on the repurposing and kind of getting lost in that system and not necessarily focusing on the efforts or the results that we were yielding. So it's easy to kind of get caught up in like, oh, I got to create another episode. Right? And that doesn't always necessarily translate to working smarter, not harder. So I think that was a good lesson. There were several times that we kind of stepped back and went, okay, is this really serving us? All right, what is working and how do we refine that? What isn't working and how do we kill that? So over the course of the year, we've really shifted a lot of the way that we're changing the content and producing it. So one of the biggest ways that we actually did that is in a lot of the content that we produce. The original idea was to take the transcript and then have that written into an interesting blog. So that's what we started doing for a while. And what we started to quickly realize is that just because we had it written into a blog format doesn't necessarily mean that the transcript of what was in the episode contained SEO-rich keyword terms. So just because we were going to all the work of having a blog written and produced doesn't mean that it was yielding the traffic results that we wanted, because we weren't in alignment with the words and the content and stuff that people were searching for. So like what we were trying to talk about wasn't necessarily what people were looking for. So partway through the year, we actually started shifting our model to where instead of me just being like, oh, I want to do a podcast where I'm talking about how much trips help to reactivate your creativity and how important it is to be able to stay creative in business. And for me, that comes from traveling and how much COVID has ruined that. Interesting podcast, not an interesting blog, not super amazing, right? So what I started doing was actually starting from, here's a list of things that I know that we want to talk about. And then here's a list of SEO terms that we know that we want to optimize for and like we want to own as the virtual Jenn. And so I actually started creating the topics for our podcast episodes from each of these SEO terms. And doing some research beforehand, saying, here's some other external sites that are talking about some of this stuff. Here's the keywords I know I want to focus on. Here's the bullet points that I want to talk about. Here's the stories that I want to tell. And that started doing a lot better in terms of our solo episodes. It really kind of helped organize things and tighten all of that up. Now, what it didn't do better for was our guest episodes. And on the guest episodes, what we found, like at first we were going back to each guest episode and saying, okay, what are they talking about? And how do we start identifying some target keywords out of that? So we were just optimizing for specifically what they were talking about. And then after a while, we realized that we were not having such a wide variety of topics as blogs on our site wasn't really serving us, because then Google doesn't know what we stand for. In general, the keywords that we're trying to focus on and optimize for are all around content repurposing, marketing strategies, content marketing, digital marketing, all that kind of nerdy online stuff, right? And what we found is that that didn't always align with a lot of our guests. Actually, just a couple of months ago, we started a new strategy where we said, okay, let's take what our guests are talking about, because it's still really good information. So let's take what they're talking about and find a thread that connects what they are talking about, because we're always asking them about how they activate content and how they are tweaking their messaging, or how they come up with their messaging, or how they're using their marketing, their messaging and their marketing. So there's usually some thread. So we go in and say, okay, in terms of this expertise, like how does this tie back over best? So then we started actually asking our writers to say, okay, use this episode as a guideline, but also we want to optimize for these keywords that are in alignment with what we're trying to do as a company as a whole. And here's some other articles that we found, like some other blog posts out there that really relate to these keywords, and some of what the guest has said support these ideas. So we're giving them some kind of research. So then the writers go out and write us an extended blog that still provides value and information in alignment with how we're trying to help with content marketing. But it also at the same time supports what each of the guest experts are doing. It just doesn't necessarily 100% line up with the narrative from the podcast. And I think that that is okay. So far, those posts have actually been performing much better than any of our other strategies. And I think that it's okay that the episode itself, sometimes a podcast can just be a podcast. Sometimes having a guest expert on it can be an amazing guest expert. But if we're also trying to then repurpose it, it needs to be repurposing with purpose, right? So just because I can repurpose what they're doing and create show notes and stuff like that, because we're going to the effort of writing up the blog and creating all of that, still needs to support the narrative of what we are targeting for our company, if that makes sense. And then what we do is we have quote cards pulled out, little sound bites or golden nuggets or like whatever you want to call it, from all of the episodes. And we pull some of that from the episode, and then we pull some of it from the actual blog itself. So we kind of have a mix of variety of what's happening there. Some other things that we learned are, so at first, when we started this, again, it was to create that original core content so that we had something to repurpose from. And when we first started content repurposing, I fell into the same trap that I warn everybody else not to fall into, mostly because I made the mistake multiple times. So what I constantly say is don't just go repurpose everything. Just because you can create 40 posts or whatever from one episode doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you should do. Because if it's something that doesn't necessarily resonate, then you're just creating a whole lot of spam posts that you're going to use. So at first, when we were doing this, we were creating all sorts of content. I mean, we had something like 6 different videos being created. We had like 12 different graphics and a whole bunch of different quotes, sayings and stuff. We were producing little snippets and stuff like that, which those are all great ideas. But we had a ton of man hours and time and money into this reproduction, and sometimes they just didn't land. And one of the things that we really actually realized was just because we want to create this information to have it be repurposed doesn't mean that we can't start with a minimal amount of repurposing in a way that we know is going to serve us and continue to serve us. So we decided that always we would be producing a blog, because an SEO optimized blog is forever going to serve us into the future. And then we're going to create just a few quote cards, like image type things. And we started to understand what visuals are really going to help. We tested a lot of different visuals. So those visuals then became the basis. So right now, when we create our stuff, we do our episode live thumbnail, we create 4 different graphics, and then we create a tip. So what we also started realizing is that people love the Cliff's Notes version of what's happening in the episode. So for every episode, we started creating a tip. And it's like, hey, here's the top tips from this, or the top key takeaways, or whatever. And started turning those into infographics, which share amazingly well on all of the social channels. We're also including those in the blogs. So we're like, okay, that's a good start. That's all we need for right now. Just doing that gives us enough content for posting on all of our social channels multiple times a day. And that's really all we need. We didn't have to create this like, go batch 30 videos and then you're going to create 40 posts from each thing. And then you have this like omnipresence channel, which is cool. But if it's not information that's landing or resonating or really creates a lot of engagement, then it's just wasted effort. So that was a mistake that we made and figured out and have adjusted for, and will be again. So I will circle back around to that and like some of our future plans that we're going to do. Here's another big one that we fought a lot because of content repurposing. So the point of proving that we can take core content, core episode of a podcast, and then repurpose that or retool it into our SEO optimized blog is to increase traffic. Like we're finding that attracting traffic by people who are looking for answers to those things on Google and ultimately on YouTube. So the whole point of that is that when we're doing other social posts out on social platforms, that the call to action should drive people back to the blog, because social channels love to keep traffic on their own social channels. If they have to send it anywhere, they would rather send it to a blog. So that's like the next best place to go. So we know, which is, by the way, a tactic that we are doing right now, is that creating posts and including a link to a blog and then turning that into an ad is much more effective and cheap than straight up running ads. And so we knew that that was a strategy that we wanted to do. Now, when you're producing 2 podcast episodes every week, what that turns into is a lot of content writing. And so when we were getting ready to post most of these, a lot of the blogs weren't ready, and we were producing content at such a fast rate, and the blogs were not being caught up at the same rate. And so we ended up with a lot of social posts that had to go out there without a call to action or without pushing traffic back to the blog. The idea was that we could drop these posts out on Pinterest and out on Facebook and Instagram and be sending that traffic straight into our site. Well, without the blogs being done, it wasn't happening. So what we have been doing in this last really 3-4 months is starting to play catch up, and we're going back to all of our old episodes. We're retooling the blogs that we had written that weren't working, and we're generating some new content based off of each of these episodes. So that is actually working. Just from what we're doing there, we have already increased our traffic to our site without running any ads or strict calls to action on our social posts. This is just from attraction traffic. And we have already increased traffic to our site over 300%, which is crazy. Now, what's really awesome about that is that we've been increasing traffic to our site. What's not awesome about that is that foundationally, we did not have all of our call to actions set up inside each of the blogs. So we're driving traffic there, we're getting eyeballs on it. And I don't have strong opt-ins or freebies or whatever to keep people super engaged. And the one that we did have on our site, epic fail, was for the Content Toolbox to go get access to the vault, which is on the site still, and you can still go get access to. But we discovered, because we were not watching our metrics on that it was not working and has not been working for quite some time. So here we are doing all this work to drive all this traffic and sending people there, and there's no opt-ins. So what we were doing is generating, like, building online authority, building brand awareness, and creating valuable content. So it doesn't hurt, but it's a little tough when it's like, oh, we're sending all that traffic and we haven't been capturing them. So thank goodness for Facebook pixels and AdWord pixels, because we have been building a pixel audience. So that's some of the things that we learned there. Also, having a straight up partner program. So when people do come in and they're like, I really like this and I want to get involved, giving them other ways to get involved or share information and get paid for those efforts, that is, I think, super key. So we're actually in the final throes of setting up our partner program, and anybody who wants to will be able to come and sign up to promote anything that we are doing, share any of our information, and get paid to do so. So I think that that's super important to have on your site and to have built in as part of your foundation. YouTube, let's talk about YouTube. So we have done, every one of our episodes are recorded on video, and all of them get turned into YouTube. Like I said earlier, we have not been focusing on growing our YouTube channel. So our subscribers are we haven't even hit 100. In fact, we haven't even hit 50, I think, at this point in time. So if you want to go help out, head on over to YouTube and go hit that subscribe button. That'd be awesome. Thanks. So what I have realized is that we were doing as an experiment, and is an experiment that didn't quite work. So we have been SEO optimizing or YouTube optimizing all of our content. So we actually do a separate keyword research and a separate write-up for YouTube, because the topics that come up on YouTube to rank for are slightly different than, what people go look for straight on Google. So we've been optimizing for that stuff. Has not yielded a lot of results, and it does take a lot of work. Now, I believe that what we have done is actually laid the foundation for these to eventually get really gobbled up. But I think what we have to do with YouTube is, instead of saying, a podcast is not really formatted for YouTube. It's just a secondary platform. And once people get addicted to the podcast, then they may want to find it on YouTube. Or once they get addicted to the blogs, they may want to find it on YouTube. Another thing that we are actually looking at doing is starting another YouTube playlist, which will be, I think we're actually going to call it Content Quickies. And it'll be information that's designed specifically to rank and perform on YouTube. And I think that as that channel grows from within YouTube, that the videos that we already have out there from our 100 episodes, that all of that stuff will start to grow naturally. But right now we haven't found the reach. So that has been a little rough and a lot of extra work. One that we're still sticking with because I believe it'll pay off at a future date, but it has been quite an investment. Okay, CRMs. So I did talk a little bit about CRMs. Those of you who know my background, I started off in Infusionsoft, well, actually Salesforce and MailChimp and all that kind of stuff. But then I started off doing a lot of Infusionsoft work, and we switched a lot of stuff over to ClickFunnels when Actionetics came out. When that kind of died, we went to ActiveCampaign. And then now we are actually working with a different platform, which we love. So we have switched our CRM systems multiple times, which is not good for an email list, which is not good for deliverability, and also not really good for all of the systems. So when we have, this lead magnet over here, or this opt-in over here, and we have all these different zaps that are running to bring contacts from here to this CRM and this CRM to here. And so we literally have people on 3 different platforms, and it kind of became a giant mess. Broken links and things like that. So what we have really been working on in the last month is going through and buttoning up our links, trying to make sure everything's working, and trying to make sure that we're pulling all of the contacts from each one, avoiding duplicates, and we're really just focusing and saying, all right, this is what we're going to stick with for now, because it has caused a lot of damage, I think, to our list and emails not going out and stuff like that. So trying out different CRM systems, not a bad idea, but making that many switches in a matter of a couple of years, not the best. So we found one, we're going to stick with it for a good long while and get all of our systems set up to make sure that we don't have any people falling through the cracks there. Here's another thing that we learned. So in order to keep this content activation system up and running, we actually have employed and gotten use of some different services and different people that help us keep all of this going. And so we have hired and tried out and fired several different writing services and design services and individuals and things like that. And what's really been good about that is that it has forced us to simplify our process and to really create very specific process and creative briefs or project briefs to say, here's exactly what we need, here's exactly the references. So we just come down to copy and paste, here's the episode information, and away they go. But that has taken quite a lot of time to get to a place where those are simple and we get back what we want. In addition, these services or individuals and stuff, sometimes it takes more time and we have to get the copy back before we can do the design. And so the time factor, just in terms of using different services to create all of our different repurposing, which we aren't even doing all that much, but it does require extra time and more time than I probably allowed for in the beginning. And that's also relying on just one turnaround. So if something comes back and it doesn't pass our QA test, then it has to go back again. So timelines have kind of bit us a little bit using so many different services. So we've had to kind of retool our process to figure that out again. Let's see here. Old content can still be great because it certainly can. Like, that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're taking this old content and reactivating it just by repurposing stuff in a different way. And that's a really, really fun experiment that we are doing right now based off of all these things that we learned. Okay, so those are things that I learned. I will talk here really quick about what went well. So one of the things that we have done is I actually have hired, in fact, if you go look at our Facebook feed or our Instagram feed, you will see the point at which exactly where I hired Carol, who was our new social media, well, not new anymore, but our social media manager. And she took over, created a new look for us, took over all the posting, and really got that down to a super consistent look. So Carol is amazing. We love having her on our team. And she watches those metrics like a hawk. So she's watching it daily. We get some weekly updates, and every month we go through a detailed report that she puts together showing us exactly how different things are performing. Because of what Carol has seen, we have shifted the way that we're creating some of our stuff. So she's seen that images that include like more natural type images of yours truly really seem to resonate better. And the Instagram Reels are performing amazingly well. So that's something that she's like, I think I want to try this out. Let's try it. So we have shifted all along how we are creating our content and how we're using it. And that's, let's see, one of the animals here, this is Daddy. So that has really helped in watching our numbers. I think we've done a good job about watching our numbers there. We've also been watching numbers of the top visited blog posts and the top downloaded podcasts to help feed that back into producing more of what works and less of what doesn't. So I feel like we've done a pretty decent job at watching our stats, and also something that we want to improve going forward. What else has gone well are the project briefs that I mentioned for creating design and content and stuff like that, we have gotten our project briefs down to such a copy and paste model that we can actually take that same thing, and whether we're going to an individual or a different service, we can give them the same project brief and get pretty close to the same result no matter who we're sending that to. So that has been a really good refining process, and one that has taken us quite a while to get there. Okay, so we know that running inexpensive ads like Facebook traffic ads are much less cost-wise than conversion ads. And we also know that video content helps. We can create a video view audience based on people that are watching our videos. So we've tried to figure out how to use more of our video out on social, but we really are testing, especially right now with our episode 100 mashup, our big celebration, is that we're testing running really inexpensive ads to push traffic to those posts that are driving traffic to the blogs. And that has been a really key effective strategy, one that we can tell is helping quite a bit already just in this short amount of time. So I think that that's something that as we get caught up on all of our blogs, that'll be a thing that we continue to do, because it's inexpensive enough. We can add that into our budget consistently and really increase our reach. Again, creating noise, increasing traffic, building our social following, building our email list, all of that is coming from reactivating that old content. So we're able to take content that was actually produced even from our guests and from our top episodes, and we're just repurposing that. We've created some amazing ebooks. If you haven't gotten the top 10 ebook, or you haven't gotten the top 34 guest expert tips, make sure that you go grab those, because all we've done is taken the stuff we already had produced and just put it together in a different format. But I tell you what, those ebooks have become amazing reference guides. You want to make sure that you grab that. And it's really fun kind of proving that you can take that old content and just repurpose it. Doesn't even have to mean that I'm involved. I'm still here because I'm recording this. But it's showing that we can take that model and your team can reuse all the stuff that you've already created and still create everything you need to make some big noise. Maybe you have a promotion or a launch or something coming up. That's a perfect way to take what you've already done and just create something new from it. So that's been pretty exciting to see how that's working. All right, so finally, I know this is getting on long here, but I just want to make sure I shared all this with you guys. So for episode 100, we are doing, like I said, we are promoting all of our guests, and all the way through the end of April, we will be sharing and promoting each of those episodes, making sure that you get a chance to grab that digital toolbox that we created and really give you all of those top tips. We are also, because of everything that we have learned and everything that we want to do, which I'm about to go through, we are putting a pause on the Content Toolbox after episode 100. It will be coming back, but we are putting a pause on this to implement some more of the things that we learned and things that we want to adjust. And that will be relaunching then in probably sometime in June or July. Probably sometime May, June, I guess. And with that, we're going to do a big relaunch strategy. So I will be calling on you to help us out once we relaunch with episode 101, whenever that may be, that we are going to pull everybody together to go download on the same day. And that is going to put us in the top 100 of podcasts. So I know you're ready to help, and I know I can call on you when the time comes. Just giving you fair warning. That's what's happening. Because one of the things, like I said, that we wanted to focus on was, hey, we're producing a podcast. Why don't we actually treat this like a podcast? So what do we need to do to really rank for that and get on one of the top podcast lists? So with that, the other reason that we're pushing pause is so that we can go through and do some extra work on things that we want to plan on working on. One of the first things that we want to plan on working on is, for those of you who have watched, we have all decided that our theme song and intro is way too long. So that's going to get cut way back. We're also going to change up the format of the show just a little bit. We're also rebranding. We're tweaking our branding a little. Don't worry, I'm still keeping the purple because forever purple. But what we realized is that just using the purple and using some of the kind of more scripty, like handwriting type font on our social posts has been really engaging, but we're attracting only women. And, some of our best customers are men, so we want to make sure that we are not blocking out that demographic. So that has come from looking at our numbers and looking at how our social following has shifted and looking at the download demographic of people who are listening to our podcast who aren't seeing the branding as much. So we know that we're not in complete alignment. So we're doing a little bit of shifting in terms of our branding work. And I have a list of other things that we are planning that are going to be a lot of fun. All right, so number 1 is we will be targeting more specifically some of our guests and topics for the podcast. We will actually be doing outreach, and specifically we want to find some people to talk on this type of topic. So we're actively going to be looking for people. We will also be holding kind of some hot seat type episodes. We've done a few of those. They've been a lot of fun to bring on basically some of our ideal clients, bring them on and talk with them and help them through how they can turn on content activation systems for their business and specifically how that looks for them. So those are some of the episodes that we're planning. And because we do have a podcast and we're going to treat it like a podcast, we want to make sure that we're setting up a good experience for the guests right from the start, and that we are really taking advantage of getting them links and resources and assets to be able to share so that we can really leverage our guest audience and take much better care of them, as well as taking better care of promoting that content ourselves and helping them to be able to promote. So that is one of the systems that we're working on. We also, and I only am going here, I'm going to give you like a full warning, is we're only going here because we have a full team and a system. We've already been running the rest of this for a year. We're getting it pretty dialed in, and we have found some ways that we can literally use exactly what we're already creating and just maximize our exposure. So there is additional reach that we could and probably should be getting on Medium, the platform Medium. So just publishing our blog back out there, and LinkedIn, same thing with some of our content we're producing to go out onto LinkedIn. And then our tip graphics that we have been creating were originally created for Pinterest, but we didn't have the blogs ready. So we are going to go create some very strategic Pinterest boards to share those tip infographics, and all of that pointing back to the blog. So those are 3 more platforms that we're actually going to be working on. Like I mentioned already, that we are doing kind of an SEO bridge for our guests. So we're going to make sure not only are we kind of focusing in on the topics, but we'll make sure that we're supporting the podcast as a podcast. And then for our repurposing efforts with SEO and the blog is we are going to do some extra research to say, all right, here's some additional valuable information around this same topic that still helps you to better understand digital marketing, content marketing, or whatever it is that we want to help provide. And that becomes, I think, will become a much more valuable and shareable resource. Let's see. All right, so one of the big reasons that we are pushing pause on all of this as well is to catch up specifically on the blog posts and some of our digital assets from some of the past episodes that are not done. So we want to get all caught up, make sure that we have maximized our repurposing issues out of all the content we have already created. And then we are going to be producing new content, and we are going to make sure that we are doing it well in advance. The idea is that when a podcast goes live, it goes live on the podcast channel, it goes live on YouTube, and the blog post goes live, and all of those things serve to support each other. Now, our social posts from the content repurposing out of those, that can go on forever, and that can continue to serve and support the blogs. But we need to get ahead and allowing for time with our services, our writers, and creating all the graphics, is that we want to make sure that we have that time cushion so that we are not under stress or under fire for trying to create all of those things last minute. And instead it becomes more of like an easy system that just kind of keeps running. So we are also we're taking a look at some of our repurposing efforts, and we're really going to look at what is getting the best results, and are there things that we're doing that are not getting great results or that we aren't using as much. So we're going to try to minimize our repurposing efforts. So we're going to actually break that down even more and really focus. And once an episode drops, pay attention to, is this resonating? Is it not? And if it is, and it becomes marked a winner, then we will be turning around and saying, okay, now let's go create more. Let's go create a more in-depth blog. Let's go create some additional digital assets so that we can really shine some light on this one. But there's no reason to have to do all of that right from the beginning, because we don't know if that episode's going to completely resonate. So that's one of our new plans. Okay, our CTA development and creating different evergreen opt-ins. So there are so many ways that we can repurpose what we already have. What we're doing is actually looking at some of the top articles, which we've already created. Like I said, you can go grab the Top Tips book right now, which gives you the top 10 of our episodes. And then we also have, as of today, the top 34 expert tips to help scale and skyrocket your business, right? The digital toolbox. So we've created those. Those are just some fantastic examples of evergreen opt-ins that can continue living. And we're also going to go create some other checklists or guides or things like that that are easy enough to add in to multiple different blog posts. So we aren't just constantly calling out the same CTA, but we have things that are hooked in and designed to help bring additional value to people when they're ready. So those are things that we're going to be developing and making sure they are integrated into our system. We also are going to, for those of you who have managed to get into the Content Toolbox before it was broken, we are going to revamp the Content Toolbox, and then we're also going to create some just plain open public resources page so that there are a lot more valuable resources and information right at your fingertips. And I think that that is another fantastic call to action that doesn't even require opt-in, right from the blog post or right from some of the social posts. And so we want to make sure that that stuff is prevalent and really out there to just be able to help people. And the content quickies, developing our YouTube channel, a new playlist, like I mentioned earlier, where we're really going to be creating content that is designed specifically for YouTube first. And thinking that as we do that and focus on growing our YouTube channel, that the rest of our content will actually start to get picked up. And so that'll be an interesting and fun experiment. But those are some things that we are looking at doing to get ready while we push pause on the Content Toolbox. So that is my list. And look at that. This is like the longest episode ever. Thank you. I hope you guys listen at 2x speed for reals, because that's a lot. But there's a lot that we've learned in a year, right? There are a lot of things, and a lot of things that we're planning on changing and doing differently, and stuff that is still serving us and really helping. So it's been an amazing and fun journey. And honestly, this experiment that we are doing right now, I honestly hope that you join us at the Fast Track Workshop the end of April. Again, we are taking all of this different repurposing effort. You will see a whole lot of noise and effort and things happening around this. And we're just driving people back to these blog posts and really sharing that digital toolbox resource that we've put together. And all of that is literally just a case study. So it could be epic. It could completely fail. Either way, I'm going to share the results of what happened. What I do know so far is before we started running any ads, before we have actually really promoted the opt-ins, we've already increased traffic to our website by over 300%. And I can't even imagine what this is going to do to our email list and our social following and everything. So super excited. We have about 3 weeks here where we're going to be promoting all of this and running this as a system. I'm going to share at the workshop behind the scenes of exactly how we mapped out all of our repurposing and put together this plan, what worked, what didn't, and share the results with you and help you to actually create the exact same system that you can use to activate the content you've already created and turn that into something that's causing noise so that you are ready for your next promotion or launch or whatever it is that you're working on. So that, and oh my gosh, the VIP option for the workshop is, I totally just came up with this, but I think it's epically amazing. If you attend as a VIP, not only do you get the social box and a special session just for VIPs, you also get an opportunity to be one of the hot seats featured on day 2, where you'll get some one-on-one support directly from me regarding your content activation efforts. In addition, you can attend any future Fast Track workshop for completely free as a VIP. We will be doing a Fast Track workshop probably every month where we'll be focusing on different aspects of activating your content. That is, I just love that. So it's a no-brainer. Grab it as a VIP and just come attend any of the future ones for free. So I really hope that not only this experiment works, but that you join us, because it's going to be a lot of fun to just play with activating this content and really just saying, you know what, we're making this work with our old content and turning it into something that is creating amazing engagement. So whew, that is it. I appreciate everything that you've done. You guys can use this time while we're on pause to go binge listen to all of our old episodes, laugh at the mistakes that you now know we have made, and the things that we're going to change going forward. So I look forward to seeing you again on episode 101. I look forward to seeing you at the Fast Track workshop, and take advantage of all of the resources and assets we have put together here. Dig around, go learn something new, comment and share. Want to hear what's happening. I don't even care if you're just like, yeah, this sucks and this episode was way too long. But I think that there's some pretty awesome information in it. So thank you so much, all my love. You guys are amazing, and I will see you again soon on episode 101 of the Content Toolbox.